Prime Minister said he was drawing the line to ban anyone from pointing out that things are broken after 8 years of his leadership. Well, his own parliamentary budget officer has crossed the line, Mr. Speaker, saying, and I quote, there is a system that is broken. Anybody who has recently applied for a passport, employment insurance, old age security, and the list goes on. They probably realize very well that the level of public service Canadians are getting is not what one would expect from a world-class public service. There is room for enhanced leadership. Mr. Speaker, will he call to the carpet this rogue parliamentary officer for saying that things are broken?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after a very difficult pandemic, yes, there have been challenges on service delivery, and that's why this government has been stepping up.
What do you think about the concept that Canada is broken? Because no one wants to say we live in a broken place. No one wants to talk down their city, their country, their family, their home. But I think it's okay to talk down the government and how the government is doing, and certainly politicians are fair game, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two ways to define broken. There is, I call it the DNA way. Does it go to the core of the person, or is it, little cuts and bruises and so on? So, if something gets to a human's DNA, that's pretty critical. If someone gets to some small bruises. So what Pierre Poilievre did list a bunch of broken things, the passports, all these things are small broken. But when you ask me the question, I go to the fundamental definition of Canada. And Ezra, I did a little homework. In 1967, we became Canadian citizens. I was just a teen at that time, no, almost a teen. And my father received a certificate. And then we were called the Dominion of Canada. And in that certificate, it reminded every immigrant what they're entitled to. And I'll list the four. Number one is you're entitled to freedom of speech. You're entitled to freedom of assembly. You're entitled to freedom of religion, and you're entitled to a democratic parliament, a free democratic parliament. Now, those were the four things that define Canada. I'll call it the DNA of Canada. And if you speak to anyone, any Canadian, I would say at least 10 years ago, because I think we've lost this lesson, but any Canadian since the First World War, that's who Canada is. That's its DNA, those four values. And we were told, we got to Canada. We are immigrants to Canada. This is who you are now. This is what you enjoy, these four fundamental pillars. And from 1967, now we all understood it as Canadians, Ezra. We all understood freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and a free democratic government. We understood those. But it went on in 1983. It wasn't just who we were. We codified it into the Charter of Rights. Pierre Trudeau understood that, we all agree that we are this, but let's make sure that we will never change who we are as Canadians. So those four principles and others were codified in the Charter of Rights. So that's who we are. Now, when you ask, are we broken? When we look at it in those terms, the answer is yes. And who did the breaking? Justin Trudeau.
That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest, either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. We rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.